Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today my topic is going to be underrated items of food and drink which people can find in Portugal. Now, as some viewers may recall, I previously made a video on Portuguese food in which I called Portuguese cuisine generally overrated, and that was in response to many videos on the internet which I personally thought were a bit too positive. I have to be honest, I'm not a great lover of Portuguese food on the whole. You know, the typical things that you think of when you think of Portuguese food, such as, you know, all the seafood dishes, the cod, etc, etc. I've said that before, I'm not going to go over it again. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't things in Portugal and amongst Portuguese cuisine which I really appreciate, both in terms of food and in terms of drink. And today I want to explore 5, maybe 6 of them, which I think are kind of under-considered by residents and visitors to Portugal, and that deserve a lot more praise and attention than they get. So first of all, we have cheese. Now, I like cheese. I don't eat all that much of it because I know it's not all that good for me, but you know, I really love it, like many people. Now, when I think of cheese, I have to be honest, when I was living overseas, when I lived in China, Thailand, the UK, the thought of Portugal and cheese, you know, it never really went together. It's just not a country which is really associated with cheese. When people think of it, they usually think of France or maybe Italy. But in reality, Portugal has some really fabulous cheeses. I read an article, it said there are over 100 famous cheeses in Portugal. Obviously, I haven't tried them all. I'm more a fan of softer cheeses rather than the harder ones. I remember when I went to Serra de Australia National Park, I had fantastic cheese in a restaurant there and good bread as well. I've since bought that kind of cheese from that Serra region several times. But it's not just that. There are lots and lots of different kinds of cheese in Portugal that are made with cow milk, they're made with goat's milk, sheep's milk, or a mixture. And we have a local restaurant, I suppose you could call it. It's called the Cheese Factory, not the Cheesecake Factory. They have a factory that makes cheese, and they also have a restaurant. And you can go there and buy all kinds of different cheese, and every single one of them has been good. I mean, the standard of cheese in Portugal, especially the soft cheese, is extremely high. The price is not that expensive. And I have to say, it's one of the things that I definitely would miss if I ever left Portugal, would be the availability of fairly cheap and good quality cheese, and a lot of variety of it as well. Secondly, we have broa. Now, broa is a kind of bread which originates in the northern regions of Portugal, and it's made with cornmeal and rye and leavened with yeast instead of baking powder. It is a kind of bread which is quite dense and also has a very thick and tasty crust. Now, you get this sometimes when you go in restaurants. It's often served. You might get a variety of different kinds of bread, and broa might be one of them. And that's how I discovered it. I think it goes very well with soup, but it's also good just if you put butter on it. I haven't had it with cheese, but it might be good with that as well. You know, most things are good with cheese. But when it comes to broa, I really find that the texture of the bread as well as the flavour of the crust to be really delicious. It's something I didn't even know existed until I had been in Portugal for about 6 months. And I don't think it's something which is widely known overseas, but it's definitely something that should be tried here. So next up is green wine, which is a young wine. Basically, the grapes are 3 to 6 months old when they're made into the wine, and that's why it's called green wine, because it's young, or at least that's why people think it's called green wine. Nobody actually seems to know for certain. Now, this is a bit unusual for Portugal because traditionally when people would think of Portugal and alcohol, it conjures images of port. You know, that's the most famous drink that originates from here. I don't like that at all. It's far too strong for me. Green wine tends to have a low alcohol content. It's often sparkling, and it's a very light, fruity and refreshing drink. Now, I am not a big wine drinker or alcohol drinker at all. I basically have a glass of wine maybe once a month or something. But when I do, green wine would definitely be my choice. When I go out to dinner with people, I would choose green wine. It is refreshing light, and I think it's very underappreciated. Portugal is not a country which is well known for its wine, not at all, and certainly not for its green wine, but it's something that everybody really should try. Next up, we have tomatoes, specifically ox heart tomatoes, okay, or tomatoes. Now, these are a kind of really big and ugly looking tomato. They are grown in different parts of Portugal, and it seems like different villages or different regions all have their own varieties. They've been bred over centuries. You can also find them in the supermarkets. They tend to be much more expensive than the normal tomatoes that are available here. However, when you actually taste one or cook with one, you will find out why. The flavour is so intensely powerful and tomatoey compared to the kind of watery flavour you often get with many supermarket bought tomatoes. It's fantastic. The best option with them is to buy them from people who actually grow them themselves, or to grow them yourself in your own garden, as we did with success this summer. Tomatoes are, of course, a plant which is hungry for sunshine, and Portugal has a very, very good summer, very, very sunny. The sunshine is very intense, so the fruits and the tomatoes ripen very, very well here during that period. And I can honestly say I have never had tomatoes that good. My wife used some of them to make tomato soup, and it was just unbelievable. You would think it had a lot of tomato puree in it or something like that to enhance the flavour, but no, not at all. It's just that tomato. It's just that powerful in terms of the flavour. And it's definitely something I would miss about Portugal if I ever left, beyond any doubt. It's probably my number one like for Portuguese food, because I am basically a vegetarian, and I really like tomatoes. Number 5, I'm going to choose Galao. Now, this is a beverage. It's a coffee-based beverage which is often drunk in the morning in Portugal. Many people will have it with breakfast to help them wake up. And it's actually quite common across Europe. For example, in Italy, there are Galao-like drinks, like lattes or whatever, that people would traditionally have in the morning as well. It's quite a common thing. Anyway, Galao is different from a latte because it's milkier. A latte would have 2 parts milk to 1 part coffee, whereas a Galao would have 3 parts milk to 1 part coffee. So it is weaker in terms of the intense coffee flavour. And that's not what I'm looking for. I don't really like the kind of little espresso coffees that you get here. I just cannot drink that. It's way, 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 way off the scale, too powerful for me. It's the kind of thing that would give me a headache. I think I'm a little bit sensitive to caffeine, especially when it's condensed caffeine. So I go for the Galao. I think it's an underappreciated drink here because you basically never hear people mention it. And you hear people talk about coffee for sure, but never specifically that. If you are the kind of person who is traditionally a latte drinker, then this is the drink for you. It comes in a tall glass rather than a cup, and it usually has some froth on the top. Of course, it depends where you get it from. If it's a really nice coffee shop, it's probably going to be very well presented. If it's somewhere more humble, like the Pingo Doce cafeteria, probably not so grand, but the taste is still there, and I think it's something that people should try. I only intended to do 5 things on this list, but I'm going to give an honourable mention to something that many Portuguese people will probably say, no, that's not very nice at all, and that is grelos. Now, grelos originate from turnips. It's like the leaf of the turnip, and they turn that into a vegetable here. Now, this is something which is not traditionally eaten in the UK or any other country that I have lived in, but I found I really like it. Now, one caveat here is that I am the kind of person who really likes green vegetables. Portugal doesn't have an immense variety of leafy greens. It really doesn't. It's basically confined to spinach, grelosh. I suppose you could throw in broccoli there, although it's not really a leafy green. And if you go to the frozen section, you can get like Brussels sprouts or something. And of course, cabbage. Now, I've never been a great cabbage fan. I don't mind Brussels sprouts, but I really like a lot of variety in the greens that I eat. And this is because I lived in Asia. And if you live in Asia, you will know that there are not like 4 different kinds of greens or something like you can buy in the supermarket here. There are dozens. And you do tend to miss the variety. Now, we solve that by ordering things from the Chinese supermarket. Lots and lots of different Chinese and Asian green vegetables, which are, not commonly eaten in Portugal at all, and not even seen in most cases. But grelos itself, it isn't bad. I think that it's not the kind of thing that you would come to Portugal for and say, yeah, give me a plate of grelos, not at all. But as a side dish, yeah, I find it's okay, and I think it deserves to be mentioned. Alright, well that'll do it for this video. Please let me know in the comments below what you think about my choices of the kinds of Portuguese foods and beverages which I think have been underrated. Of course, not everybody will agree with my assessment, and that's fine. Everybody has different tastes when it comes to the things that they like to eat and drink. But anyway, that'll do it for this video, and I will see you soon in the next one.